When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. I was only 24, living with my boyfriend in a small one-bedroom apartment and barely making ends meet. But the second I saw that little pink plus sign, something inside me shifted. Fear turned into excitement, and before I knew it, I was daydreaming about holding my baby in my arms. My boyfriend Jordan was surprisingly supportive. He wasn't exactly jumping for joy, but he stood by me. That meant everything. The person who surprised me the most, though, was my sister, Brielle. Brielle had always been the beautiful one, the one who turned heads, who got straight A's without trying, who never seemed to need anyone. We had a rocky relationship growing up, mostly because she loved being in control and I didn't. She was 2 years older than me and always made sure I knew it. But when I told her I was pregnant, she cried. Actual tears. She hugged me tight and whispered, "I'm so happy for you, Em. You're going to be such a great mom." That was the first time in years I'd felt close to her. We started talking more. She'd come to my prenatal appointments, helped me shop for baby clothes, and even painted the nursery with me. Jordan thought it was weird. "She didn't even come to your college graduation," he reminded me. But I shrugged it off. "Maybe she's just growing up," I said. "Maybe she wants to be part of this." By the time I was 7 months along, Brielle was practically living our place. She claimed she just wanted to help, but sometimes I'd catch her staring at my belly, her eyes a little too intense. Once I woke up to find her in the nursery alone, holding one of the tiny onesies I'd just washed. When I asked what she was doing, she smiled and said, "Just imagining what it'll be like." I should have known something was wrong then, but I didn't. A month later, she called me with big news. I could hear the excitement in her voice. "Emily," she said, "you won't believe it. I'm pregnant too." I froze. She'd never mentioned a boyfriend. In fact, I hadn't seen her date anyone in over a year. "What? How?" I asked, trying not to sound accusatory. She laughed nervously. "It was unexpected. But I've been seeing someone. It's complicated. I'll explain later." She sent me a blurry photo of an ultrasound. I wanted to be happy for her. I really did. But something about it didn't sit right. Jordan was even more skeptical. "It looks fake," he said bluntly, "like something off Google." I defended her. Again. "She's just excited. Maybe she doesn't want to talk about the father yet," I said. But I started noticing more red flags. She never showed signs of a growing belly. She'd wear oversized hoodies and avoid touching her stomach. And then, without warning, she moved back into our parents' house. Claimed she needed space to prepare. When I gave birth to my son, Liam, Brielle didn't come to the hospital. She sent flowers and a text that said, "Can't wait to meet him." No mention of her own pregnancy. No updates. Nothing. But 3 weeks later, she showed up at my door, and that's when everything started to spiral. The knock on the door was soft but persistent. Liam was finally napping in his bassinet beside the couch, and I nearly didn't want to answer it. But something in me, maybe instinct, maybe habit, made me shuffle toward the door, exhausted in my robe, and open it. There she was. Brielle stood on my porch, dressed in a long gray sweater and leggings. Her hair was slightly unkempt, and she had dark circles under her eyes. She wasn't glowing. She wasn't radiant. She didn't look like someone who had just had a baby. In her arms was a car seat, empty. "I came to meet my nephew," she said with a smile too wide, too forced. I brought him a blanket, knitted it myself. I hesitated. "You're not bringing your baby?" Her eyes flicked down to the empty car seat as if surprised by its lack of contents. "Oh, he's at home with Mom. He's been fussy lately." She breezed past me into the apartment like she used to do when we were kids. The scent of lavender drifted behind her, though it didn't mask something sour underneath. I closed the door slowly, suddenly uneasy. She hovered over Liam's bassinet like a shadow. "He's so tiny," she whispered. "And perfect." She reached down to touch his cheek, and I instinctively moved closer, placing a gentle hand on her arm. "Be careful," I said. "He's just fallen asleep." She flinched at my touch. I noticed her eyes were glossy. Not with tears, but something else. Obsession. Longing. "Of course," she said quickly. "Sorry. I've been dreaming of this moment, holding him." I wasn't sure if she meant Liam or her own baby. "You didn't send any pictures of your son," I said casually, trying to keep my voice light. "I'd love to see him." Brielle straightened up and nodded, fumbling with her phone. "Right. I've just been so tired. You know how it is." She swiped again, then handed me her phone. The screen showed a baby, but it was clearly a stock photo. I'd seen it before. I was sure of it. I stared at it a moment too long. "Brielle," I said slowly, handing the phone back. "That's not your baby." Her smile cracked. "What are you talking about? This photo, it's online. It's not yours." She laughed, too loud and too high-pitched. "Wow. Okay, detective. Maybe I used a cute photo for a lock screen. Who cares?" "I do." There was a beat of silence. She turned toward the bassinet again, her back to me, and whispered, "I just wanted to feel close to you, like we used to be." I felt a lump rise in my throat. Then why lie? She didn't answer. Instead, she asked, "Can I hold him?" I hesitated. She turned to face me, her expression so raw, so fragile, like a porcelain mask about to shatter. "Please, Em, just for a minute." Reluctantly, I nodded. She cradled Liam in her arms, rocking gently. At first, she was calm. Still, then she began to hum, an old lullaby our mother used to sing. Her eyes fluttered shut. I noticed her grip tightening. "Brielle," I said softly. "That's enough." She didn't respond. "Give him back." She opened her eyes and looked at me with something I'll never forget. Fury. "He should have been mine," she whispered. I was meant to be the mother. I stepped forward, heart pounding. "Brielle, you need to put him down. Now." She stared at me. Then very slowly, she placed Liam back in the bassinet. No words were exchanged after that. She left in silence. But that was just the beginning. For days after Brielle left, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the hallway made me jump. Every shadow outside the window felt like her. I tried to convince myself that I was overreacting, that she was just overwhelmed, unstable, not dangerous. But deep down, I knew something was off. Jordan noticed my unease. "She's not coming back," he said one night, wrapping an arm around me while I stared at the baby monitor. "You were clear with her. She got the message." But she didn't. 3 nights later, I found a pacifier on the porch. It wasn't ours. The next morning, my mom called. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice cracking, "I need to ask you something. Please don't be mad." I braced myself. "What?" "Brielle, she told us you're struggling. Like you're thinking about giving Liam up for adoption." "What?" I nearly dropped the phone. Why would she say that? She said you're overwhelmed, that you've been calling her crying, that Jordan isn't helping. She made it sound like you're on the edge, Emily. My throat tightened. None of that is true. She's lying. Silence. Then Mom said, she also told us, she's been helping you take care of him. That was the final straw. I hung up, heart pounding, and drove to my parents' house with Liam bundled in the backseat. I needed answers. I needed to look her in the eye and understand why. Why was she doing this? What did she want? But when I arrived, the house was empty, except for Brielle's car in the driveway. I let myself in. "Brielle?" I called out. "Mom? Dad?" Nothing. I walked through the living room and stopped cold when I saw the setup in the den. There was a full nursery, a crib, a rocking chair, a mobile hanging from the ceiling, soft lullaby music playing faintly. It looked like a catalog photo, but every item was brand new, unused. And on the wall above the crib, in big wooden letters, was the name Luke. She had named him, the imaginary baby, and in a frame on the side table, a photo of her holding Liam from the day she visited me. It was labeled Luke, 3 weeks old. My legs gave out. I sat on the floor, holding Liam close, trying not to panic. She created an entire reality, a whole fantasy around my son. I heard a door creak upstairs and froze. She was here. I stood up quickly and walked out the front door without saying a word. When I got home, I told Jordan everything. He didn't even hesitate. "We're getting a restraining order." But Brielle wasn't done. The next morning, I received a message request on Facebook from a woman I didn't know. It said, "Hi, I'm so sorry to bother you. I saw your sister's post about placing your baby for adoption. I just wanted to reach out and say I'd be honored to give him a loving home if you're still considering it." I stared at the screen in horror. Brielle had posted my son in a private adoption group. She even used one of the pictures she'd taken during her visit. She was trying to get rid of me. I couldn't breathe. The fact that Brielle was publicly pretending my son was hers and trying to adopt him out to strangers was beyond anything I ever could have imagined. It was no longer a family issue. It was dangerous. It was criminal. We took immediate action. Jordan and I filed for a restraining order that same day. I brought the printed Facebook post, the fake nursery photos, the pacifier from the porch, everything. The judge approved an emergency order. Brielle wasn't allowed within 200 feet of me or Liam. I thought it was over. I'd wanted to believe it was over. But then came the knock at the door. Not soft, not hesitant. It was the police. "Are you Emily Carter?" the officer asked. "Yes. We received a tip about potential child neglect. We're required to conduct a wellness check." I was stunned. Jordan came rushing over, demanding answers. The officer remained calm but firm. Someone filed an anonymous report, said the child was underweight, possibly unsafe in this environment. It was Brielle. I knew it. There was no one else who would do something so vile. I let them in. Showed them Liam's room, his feeding schedule, his checkup records, the diapers, the formula, everything. They took one look at him, sleeping peacefully, healthy as could be, and apologized before they left. Still, I felt humiliated, violated, and terrified. What was her endgame? I blocked her number. I blocked her on every platform. My family was torn in half. My mother didn't know who to believe anymore. My dad avoided the subject entirely. Brielle, meanwhile, played the victim online, telling her followers she had been robbed of motherhood, that jealousy destroyed her dream of being a mom. She had over 1,000 people believing her story. Some of them messaged me with cruel words, calling me selfish, heartless. One woman wrote, "You don't deserve that baby if you're keeping him from the woman who loves him most." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I strengthened everything, changed the locks, got a security system. I even enrolled Liam in a new daycare under a different name just in case. I had a nightmare where she walked in and took him from the crib. I woke up in cold sweat, heart pounding so hard it hurt. One afternoon, a week later, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a baby outfit. It said, "Property of Mommy, love, Luke." No note, just the onesie and a picture of Brielle smiling, holding a baby that clearly wasn't real, a doll. I snapped. I called her, from Jordan's number. She answered. "I'm going to the police again," I said. "You're sick, Brielle. You need help." "You're just mad because everyone sees the truth now," she replied, eerily calm. "He was always supposed to be mine. You know it. You weren't ready. You're still not. I did what I had to do. You tried to steal my baby." She laughed. "You say steal. I say rescue." That was the last time I spoke to her directly. I didn't know what breaking point felt like until that moment. I've been trying to hold it together for Liam's sake, telling myself to stay calm, rational, to not fall into her delusion. But the onesie, the photo, her voice on the phone, she wasn't going to stop. Jordan and I met with a lawyer. He helped us file for a permanent restraining order and advised we document every single thing, every message, every object, every threat. He said, "You need to treat her like a stalker, not a sister, because that's what she is now." I hated hearing that, but he was right. Then came the real blow. Brielle filed for emergency custody of Liam. In her filing, she claimed she had given birth to him, that I had lost mental stability after birth and abandoned him, and she had stepped in as his guardian. She submitted a forged birth certificate listing herself as the mother. It felt like I was drowning. How had it come to this? How had the girl I grew up with, shared secrets with, fought over bathroom time with, turned into a stranger willing to erase me from my own son's life? The court date was set for 2 weeks later. Those 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I barely slept, barely ate. I kept Liam in my arms constantly, afraid she'd try to take him again. Jordan tried to stay strong for both of us, but even he broke down one night and said, "What if she wins? What if they believe her?" But the truth, the evidence, was on our side. We brought everything. The nursery photos, the fake Facebook posts, the doll picture, the restraining order, the CPS report that had found nothing wrong, a real birth certificate, my medical records, even the text messages from Brielle's phone when she slipped up calling him my baby before she tried covering it. Brielle showed up to court wearing white, as if she was the grieving mother in a Hallmark movie. She cried, spoke softly, told the judge I had pushed her out because I was ashamed, that I had let her raise Liam from birth, that I was now retaliating out of guilt. It was an Oscar-worthy performance, but it didn't work. The judge saw right through it. He ruled that her claims were fabricated, malicious, and deeply disturbing. She was ordered into mandatory psychiatric evaluation and barred from contacting me or Liam indefinitely. And just like that, it was over. Or so I thought. Months passed. Things slowly returned to normal. I went back to work. Liam turned 6 months. He started laughing, babbling, reaching out for me. I felt joy again, real joy, not guarded or conditional. We even moved to a new apartment just to start fresh. But trauma doesn't vanish. Sometimes I still look over my shoulder. I keep my social media locked. I never share Liam's face publicly, and I haven't spoken to Brielle since that day in court. I don't know if she got help. I don't know if she ever realized what she did. But I know one thing for certain. She didn't want a baby. She wanted mine. It's been almost a year since everything happened. Liam is walking now, well, wobbling. He's obsessed with stacking cups and hates broccoli with a passion that feels personal. He calls me Mama in the most tender little voice I've ever heard. And when I tuck him in at night, he rests his tiny hand on mine like he's making sure I'm still there. Sometimes I wonder what he'll ask me when he's older. Why we moved. Why there are no photos of certain people in the family albums. Why I flinch every time an unknown number calls my phone. I still don't have the answers. Therapy helps. I started going a few months ago after waking from the same recurring nightmare for the 5th time. The one where I walk into a hospital room and Brielle is there, holding Liam, smiling like nothing's wrong, while everyone around me believes her. My therapist said something I can't forget. Your sister didn't just try to take your child. She tried to erase your identity as his mother, and that's a deeper kind of theft. I hadn't thought of it that way, but she was right. Brielle was released from psychiatric supervision a few weeks ago. I got an official letter. It didn't say much, just that she'd completed the required program and that she no longer posed an immediate risk. Immediate. That word stuck with me. Because it didn't say she was better, just that she wasn't dangerous right now. My parents don't talk about her. They visit Liam sometimes, but something's broken between us. I don't blame them, not fully, but I don't trust them either. They missed the signs. Maybe they didn't want to see them. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From Brielle. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. It was short, just a few lines. I thought if I had him, I'd finally matter. But you were always the strong one. I see that now. I'm sorry I tried to become you. No return address, no signature. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't respond. I burned it. And then I walked into Liam's room, scooped him up, and held him tight. He laughed and reached for my face, not knowing, and never needing to know, how close I came to losing him not once, but piece by piece. He is mine, not because I fought for him, but because I never let go, and I never will.